Live. Woo!
All right,
Bam!
everyone. Welcome to the Black Flake Podcast. This is our cigar hour, I guess. We got Kyle Matovcik, spelled correctly.
And pronounced correctly. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I tweeted out his name, and yeah, I spelled it wrong. And I already spelled Tom Luongo's name last week, so I just quick deleted it. I'm like, I'm not doing this 2 weeks in a row.
I think that should be your thing. You should just spell every guest's name wrong.
Yeah,
That's your shtick.
my shtick.
We got a lot of sticks on this show.
So I've been stuck in the mud of like gay libertarian, like local state shit. So I haven't been paying attention to the outside world as much. So Brett has been paying attention to it. So it's Kyle. So I don't know if you guys got any subjects to go over quick.
You're seeing the rounds being made again about TikTok being digital fentanyl and how we need to ban TikTok, and it's so absolutely fucking ridiculous. Sorry, I guess I probably should ask if I could swear, but I'm guessing I probably can, so we're just gonna run with it.
Yeah. Actually, whoa, hold up. Watch your fucking mouth.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So you have all these stupid motherfuckers who get like straight up concussions from Peter Thiel's penis every day, from all the funding that they're getting, that are pushing all this. TikTok is a national security threat. Okay, well, what about like Facebook, Google, these apps that like have you put in your social security number, your birthday, track your location, and everything else, but you're scared of an app that stores all of its info actually here on private servers in I can't remember exactly where, but they're through a company called Oracle. The owner of TikTok, the company ByteDance, is actually owned by a dude who's Singaporean and lives in Singapore. But for some reason, we're supposed to believe that this is like stealing all of our data and sending it to China. I saw somebody actually tweet out a video of John McAfee, kind of breaking it down. And if anybody knows John McAfee, he's absolutely fucking fantastic. And the only reason why they're posing all this is because, it's not the U.S. government's boot on your neck. It's the potential that China may get some of your information to sell you shit for cheap. I mean, let's be honest here. What the fuck are they going to do?
Do you think it has anything to do with China's getting information, or is it just complete war hawk?
I think it's just mostly people just posturing. There were articles of them supposedly some employees getting private data, but those employees were pretty much fired immediately after, because somebody linked me that article saying, "Oh, look what they're doing," but like, dude, they got rid of these people. So that tells you that they clearly don't want people doing this if they're doing that. And once again, these, I think the article was published. If you look it up, TikTok Oracle or something like that into Google, you'll see an article that I think was published in June that had detailed all this stuff out. It was a deal that was settled that once again, all your information that isn't publicly available and is private is stored here in the U.S. It's not accessible from the Chi-Coms that, we're supposed to be absolutely scared to death about, even though, you hear these dumbasses, Blake Masters, Joe Kent, once again, all these Peter Thiel little cum droplings talking about how the Chi-Coms are going to come storm the beaches of California. It's like, what are they going to do? Send a bunch of fucking 40-year-old malnourished diabetics over to storm the shores of California to take over America? No, that's ridiculous. Shut up.
Well, I mean, you're a car mechanic. Like, when people pretend that, these are domestically made cars, it's like, you mean domestically assembled, maybe? Like,
yeah, so
everything's made from all over the world. Like this.
Yeah. Yeah, so like most manufacturers now typically have what will say like a percentage of that was made in North America, I believe it is now. So
okay.
Like I think, and I haven't looked at this stuff in quite a while, but like General Motors, most of their vehicles I think are at least I shouldn't say most, but like I think their crossovers, the Corvette, and the trucks are anywhere from like 70 to like 85% made here in America.
Assembled, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, I think a lot of the parts are made in here. I could be mistaken because, like I said, it's probably been about 10 years since I looked at this stuff. So once again, this could be completely outdated. But I know GM does source a lot of their stuff from here in America, and they assemble a lot of their stuff here in America. Like Lordstown, which is only about 2 hours away from me, was the home of the Chevy Cruze. And then, lots of foreign manufacturers also doing the same thing. And then Trump in 2020, I actually think he was putting like a 30% tariff on GM for building cars in Mexico, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So, I do agree that we should be building stuff here, but like, how feasible is it?
I don't even agree with that we should be building stuff here. I think, you look at how much the economy has just boomed in technology and that stuff. It's like, it's because we're a global economy.
Mhm.
Like, if it's where the whole where ships pass, what's that phrase?
If goods don't cross borders, then soldiers will.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just that's kind of why I see it as, there's a lot of this right wing, like, oh, we got to make everything here. We got to make everything here in case we go to war and stuff like that. It's like, well, if we go to war, then we'll figure out how to make stuff here. But like right now, like,
Yeah, so my only pushback on that, not that I'm necessarily in total disagreement with you, but the jobs that where people work in like manufacturing factories, these typically are pretty good jobs. So that's why I would like to have them built here. But once again, if it's just not feasible, then it's just not feasible. But on the bright side, obviously, as we all know,
yeah, we should be stopping them and have like the free market stuff.
Well,
yeah.
I think
If
that
people
is
aren't
gonna-
doing those, good.
Oh, I think that we're gonna see somewhat of return to onshore manufacturing as the world kind of starts this deglobalization process. It's never going to come back to like where it was in like the 50s. As the dollar loses its reserve currency status, we're going to have to do more, manufacturing here and start actually exporting goods again.
Right. So
Yeah, that's true.
I agree, but the only thing that I'm a little shaky on, there was a book called Unrivaled written by this, I think the guy was like a think tanker. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he wrote the book Unrivaled and was basically just diving into China's economy and why he believes, this specific author believes, that America will remain the sole superpower of the world. And he brings up a lot of pretty good evidence. And like when people start getting terrified about China and thinking that they're going to become some like global superpower, there's still a very, very poor country. So like when you look at their GDP, you also have to factor that against like the large amount of, the large population they have. Because I mean, they have like, what is it, 1/8 of the entire planet's population. So that's a lot of people producing stuff and doing stuff. But still, like I think it's about 1/3 of their agriculture is still done by hand, while I think like here in America, we do less than like 5% by hand.
I think their GDP per capita is like 1/7 of ours, isn't it? Something crazy like that.
Yeah, but if I recall correctly, the trend has been really, really stark, like upwards, because once again, they have so much manufacturing. But the other thing that a lot of people forget, and this even goes a little bit over into the Taiwan stuff, they're very, very globally dependent, and they don't have neighbors that particularly like them. So like they import, I think it's all of their wheat and grain. So, so let's say they do go to war over Taiwan. This is going to raise all sorts of red flags for people. And like, despite the weather conditions and like how hard an amphibious invasion would be of Taiwan for China, if they were to do that, that's going to piss off a lot of people around the world, specifically the US, who, once again, we give them a lot of stuff. Our economies are so intertwined, and it's going to piss off, probably bits and pieces of NATO. So now they're going to be shut off from a lot of their imports. So they already have people writing cultural manifestos over there for the last couple of years. And it's not going to be pointed at America. It's pointed inwards. They want to overthrow their government. So, it's really not in their best interest for them to start going crazy and trying to, fight wars with other countries, because once again, they're so dependent on other people. So the main thing that people bring up when it comes to Taiwan, though, is the chip stuff. Okay, well, let's say they take over Taiwan, which once again, they only have about 2 times a year that they can do this because of the way that the ocean is and the South China Sea and all that. In these 2 times of year, they would have to do a fully amphibious invasion. Taiwan's actually a very defensible island. So, and the whole world's going to go through. It's going to be worse than Ukraine, right? Because for the last couple of years, I think ever since the pivot to Asia in 2012, they've basically been saying China's the number one threat. China is the number one enemy. Like, we're seeing all this shit about Russia right now. Just wait till they start trying to like wrap this up. And there seems to be signs that they're trying to wrap up the aid to Ukraine so that way they can focus on China. And I think a lot of this 2024 election stuff is going to be based around propaganda on China. So whenever that propaganda starts coming out, you're going to see so many dumb motherfuckers with their pants down who don't know their ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to this stuff. But to the larger point, even if they are successful in taking Taiwan, which once again, 2 times a year they would be able to do this. I had a guy on Zachary Yost who wrote like a whole white paper on this in support of arming Taiwan. Now, once again, I don't agree with this, but he's very, very well read on this. Even like Joe Solis Mullins, who I've had on my podcast as well, has talked about this. If they were to invade Taiwan and take over their chips manufacturing, why, what are they going to do? isolated to themselves, it would benefit them none, because once again, they still need all these other countries to trade with them to just survive, right? So it's not in their best interest to do that.
Yeah, and even if they take over, they're still going to have to trade those chips, because
right,
a lot of money for them.
They do want Taiwan, but I think they're willing to play the long game and maybe get it in the next 50 years, 100 years.
They've consistently said that they seek peaceful unification. And as far the laws between China and the US, like how they view Taiwan, are so incredibly ambiguous. But basically, you know, we have strategic ambiguity is what the Obama administration laid out, where they said, like, China, don't go taking over Taiwan because you don't know what we'll do. And Taiwan, don't go declaring independence because you don't know if we'll back you up if you do that, which actually is a good deal, because we could just kind of sit back and, you know, let the chips fall where they may. But now with you know, the Trump administration and now the Biden administration, all these stupid fucking right wingers just have no idea what they're talking about. They've repeatedly said we will militarily defend Taiwan, and then they've continued this military buildup in what they call the Indo-Pacific, the South China Sea, you know, sailing warships through the Taiwan Strait and all that, and then doing all these different aerial drills, military drills, B-52 bombers to Guam. They're seeking to double Japan's military budget over the next 5 years, specifically aimed at China. Once again, send stuff over to Australia. They said that Kamala Harris was in the Philippines saying that we'll go to war with China over the Philippines. I mean, this is the main goal that the U.S. State Department wants. This is the Pentagon's big fucking gravy train, is China. And you have the dumb motherfucking right-wingers that constantly insist that Biden's soft on China, that Biden doesn't do enough against China. He has said repeatedly that we will go to war with China if it comes to, you know, if they go after Taiwan. And then, you know, not to mention all this other stuff, you know, now we're praying for the Uyghur Muslims, which once again, there's no evidence of, you know, 1 million people dead. Like, where the bodies?
I fell for that a few years ago too, but
oh yeah, me too. I think actually you kind of sealed the deal for me, Kyle. Like,
really?
I think you did an episode on Uyghurs, right? Just kind of broke it down with someone.
Pat McFarlane is kind of like the go-to guy on this. He did a whole documentary on this, and he's very, very well read on it. Well, he's way smarter than me on all this, but
the one thing I was going to say too is like Russia, you know, they went Russia, stealing elections and stuff like that. I never got the feeling about Russia that like they were as big a superpower as China, and that's not from like, I'm not talking about like looking into it and comparing militaries. It's just like the general feel of the census in like America. Like you never feel like Russia is as powerful as China. I think that might be a harder sell for like the right wing, because they propped China up so much militarily, because they are huge too. Like it's going to be a really tough sell to sell the war. But
you know what, I gotta say, I disagree with you.
They also locked us down for 2 years, so like I don't put anything past them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say it's not going to be a hard sell. I mean, that's what this TikTok is. This TikTok is the ramp up. Get everybody on. You know, half the country is already being spied on. That's what the narrative is. Half the country's being spied on. The Chinese Communist Party has already infiltrated every home in America. Like,
every institution.
We have to stop them. So,
yeah,
I mean, they're building up right now.
Yeah, I mean, what do you hear all the time?
Public support.
Yeah, you hear all the time. And I do
door-to-door sales, so like I talk to people all the time, and it's always like, oh, China's spying on us, and I just kind of go like, hey, the Patriot Act.
Yeah, remember that?
It just does not click in their brain at all. Like,
no.
Remember how everybody reacted to that balloon that came across us a month ago?
Yeah, the balloon that came out of like
my mind about that.
Yeah, the balloon that like came out of Indiana that your government spent like $400,000 to shoot
actually,
down.
They missed the first time, so it was actually you got to double that number.
Dude,
yeah, like what the hell are we doing?
I literally said it's the balloon of mass destruction, and then it was like a day or two later, Jack Posobic's like, it might have had weapons of mass destruction in it.
Yeah, like, you want to talk about it.
So, imagine if they send 2 balloons. Like, we're going to war the next day. Like, that's all it's going to take.
What do these like left-wing people who hate capitalism, what is their take on this?
You know, some left-wingers,
like a communist country.
The left-wingers who are anti-war left-wingers, so I have to add that caveat there.
Yeah.
I was actually listening to Sam's. Yeah, not many, but the ones who are good, like the good anti-war leftists, like Robbie Martin, Abby Martin, Misty Winston, Sam Cedar, even though he's complete. Oh, they're all kind of retarded on economics. Let's be honest. They're actually Max Blumenthal. He actually did a panel with a whole bunch of other people on the Xinjiang province and the whole deal with the Uyghurs. All these guys are solid on Russia and China. That's why I hate to say this, and once again, I'm like a culturally very right. I mean, I've been with the same woman now for 5 years. We got married. I bought a house young. I work in a fucking blue collar field, right, dude? I work on cars for a fucking. My family drives all fucking domestic vehicles, right?
Stop bragging.
He's wearing sunglasses.
Yeah, right.
He made his wife go get his sunglasses for him.
Yeah,
I did. Specifically through threats of violence. I told her she would be beaten if she did not get me these. Come on, man! I got Italian in me too, so you know.
Culturally Christian.
I married the first girl I dated, so for 7 years, and I got 3 kids and one on the way.
Yeah, your sweater tells me all that.
I'm more right wing than you guys.
I don't know. That sounds pretty gay to me.
Oh yeah, dude. Here we go. This shit drives me nuts. Is the new fascination? Maybe it's just because I wasn't on Twitter for all that long. Just this fucking circle jerk of people who can't stop patting themselves on the back with how right wing they are. It gets so fucking annoying. Like, oh, everybody who disagrees with me is a leftist. Like, dude, fuck out of here. I really don't care.
You have to own the libs.
Yeah, everything's about owning the libs, and like the dumbest knuckle dragger fucking take that I see is that Trump has all the right enemies, so he must be an ally. Like, no, like I'm sure Hitler didn't like Mao that much, but that doesn't make Mao or Hitler good people.
Right. I do like Reed's take where he's like, what does he say? Like 10% of the time he does something sort of all right.
Yeah, and he's spot on there, and it's kind of funny because like I tweeted out today that I called a DeSantis simp, a lib, and a simp for Z and Putin, which is just the funniest shit in the world to me because like people can't seem to grasp like the nuance of politics sometimes, especially like diehard anarchists. Oh, voting is violence. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, what else is new happening? I'm trying to think.
France is pretty lit right now.
Yeah, that was.
They seem to know how to party over there,
right?
Like, making out and partying. Like, dude, I'd love to go drinking over there. I don't know if they have whiskey, but I mean, it looks like a good time.
So tell me what happened in France. Like, I have no idea what happened in France.
So
okay, Brett, go ahead.
Yeah. So they wanted to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. I haven't looked into the economics of it, but I'm pretty sure like their entitlement programs are like insolvent. So. Macron knew that this wouldn't pass through their parliament, so he invoked this rule where he could just bypass it altogether and just make an edict, and then raising the retirement age, and it's got the entire country up in arms. Like I've seen numbers like over 1 million people protesting, and I saw probably like 500,000 maybe in Paris alone. I mean, I don't know if these numbers are accurate, but the videos I've seen kind of prove it. I looked on actually, if you want Snap apps on Snapchat, and you can look and see people posting up videos on that app, and you go over to France, and there's like over a dozen bubbles of riots and protests in like over a dozen cities throughout France.
Oh, it looks like Modern Warfare 2. Like,
yeah,
they were like it's so. A girl I knew that I play a little bit of music with, she was an au pair over there in France for a little while. I know, like, it's easy to shit on France because it's France, because for all the things that's French. But, like, France, as far as, like, our philosophers and stuff, has given us, like, lots of really good people. And she was saying that there is a really neat culture that's always consistently passed down for, like, teenagers and young adults to rebel. Like, that's in their culture, kind of like our culture is to be like Americans and like guns and say we're going to go to France and drink whiskey in France.
I mean, the French Revolution was pretty based.
But didn't France also gave us the postmodernist philosophers as well?
Yes, they did.
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, we could go all day about that. I'm just saying, like, they've got their fair share of coolness about.
Yeah, they also gave us Frederick Bastiat, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Frederick
saying.
Bastiat, the French Revolution. I mean,
Voltaire de Clear.
right?
They give me my
they have
breakfast
good-
every single morning. I eat French toast like every single day.
Mm-hmm.
They have great cake.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the French toast is literally what just sealed the deal for me. Like the French are great.
Yeah.
There's no argument that there's no way you can say the French have not
Right.
benefited humanity more than they've been a negative, more positive than negative.
I'll take it. But no, that's similar. And when I was in Italy, that was similar too. That like younger generations were like, they got away with
Here, throw this in there too.
they would get like slapped on the wrist for a lot of things that we would get arrested for here in America. You know, like graffiti and stuff like that. They kind of have a history of being taken over by governments over and over. So they kind of just have an like there was anarchist shirts in gift shops.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like not a big,
That's not around here.
in a tourist gift shop in like a big city.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just kind of and like there was right in downtown on like ancient bricks that have been there for 1,000 years. There was like graffiti, like anarchist graffiti on it. I was like, yeah, they kind of have that like anti-authoritarian culture over there. I respect it.
That would be really cool to like, because we're all like scattered. So like, I mean, me and Will are close, but we're all the way down here in Georgia. But like, if we could like get an opportunity besides at a convention to like be near one each other. So Derek, tell me about your visit to Savannah that you had when you were near me and didn't let me know.
I didn't know that you were down there. I'll tell you this.
Well, I live here. This is my home.
I didn't know that, but I'll tell you this. A lot of gays. I was really surprised at the amount of like openly gay couples. Maybe it's because I'm from the Midwest.
No,
I thought you were going to say something completely different. I thought you were going somewhere way different.
No, it is like the
Basically, if you live in Savannah, you have to be gay. That's what I found.
Well, there's also a lot of blacks.
That's where I thought you were going.
So, okay,
and hold on, and a lot of homeless people.
Okay, so
and I think I even met one gay black homeless guy. So he had all three of the things at the same time. Total dick.
So let me address all that.
Did you invite him on our show?
His eyes went both ways, as did his sexuality.
We tried to fire Derek because we found out he's not a real minority.
The fuck?
And we needed one minority. He's just gay. That doesn't fucking cut it anymore.
So
you're not the oppressed group. Yeah.
I want to hear Buddy's explanations of the gays and the blacks and the whole.
It was really like, I'm not kidding either. Like there was a lot black. I expected it's the South, but like I was really surprised at how many gay couples were just openly gay walking around. Not that it matters.
Yeah, we're cool down here, you damn Yankees. Y'all think we're damn knuckle draggers? We got it. We're progressive and shit.
I don't judge people.
Not that it matters.
I don't judge people. I was just really surprised by it. I'm not used to that from being from the Midwest.
So,
by the way, Derek does have a gay friend, so it's okay.
Sure.
You saw a lot of homeless people because you were downtown. You were visiting all the places that where homeless people would be by tourists. Like every city has like a homeless. Now, also, y'all homeless population might be a little bit different because it actually snows and gets unbearable.
I was gonna say it's kind of hard to be homeless in Minnesota because
so like we
still have pores.
Yeah, fuck the pores.
With the gays. Yeah, it's a very like Savannah is a very gay friendly city. It's been like they call it like a San Francisco of the East Coast that no one knows about. You were also coming up on. Were you here for St. Patrick's Day?
Right before we left. Right before that.
Yeah.
Don't tell me St. Patrick's Day is gay.
God, there's fucking like green 4-leaf clovers and fucking dicks everywhere.
Well, outside of Boston, Savannah has the biggest.
St. Patrick is rolling over in his grave.
So I heard that what is it, San Francisco or wherever over there in California? I don't fucking know.
Hookah
California.
City.
Yeah, they have the highest gay population, and then I lived in Fairview Park, Ohio, but not far from there was I think it was called Westlake, and I heard they had the second highest gay population there, but it's Ohio.
So
Not a real place.
Do people
Yeah.
walk around like with gaydar and take numbers?
You can in Savannah. It's pretty easy.
So, Will, how gay is your neighborhood?
I was hold on. I was gonna say I was really disappointed.
We got
in the lack.
our representation, even down here in the swamp.
I was really disappointed in the lack of Confederate flags.
Dude, I told you,
Really
man. Like, you
disappointed.
could.
I saw one guy with a hat.
Inward, and
I saw one guy with a Confederate flag hat on, and I'm pretty sure he was a tourist. He was hammered.
Yeah, but you gotta also remember, like, you're in downtown city where, like, you're also by like SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. Like, that is an international school. Like, it's world renowned. Like, it's a bit like it's Savannah and it's in the South, but it's like a real city, like with like real
Gays?
people from all over the world. Yeah, you know.
I didn't actually think this was going to become a conversation.
I told you. Now with the black,
I'm really intrigued. I want to know more.
So yeah, it's in the South. I think 50% of Black Americans live in like the southern 4 states or something like that. Which is always really funny when
Do they cause 50% of the crime?
when they
Just kidding. Or whatever the stat is.
You're making a solid case for global warming. If you catch my drift.
I actually think most of the homeless people I saw were actually white.
Mm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, good.
Well,
Fuck
we
them
have white
boys.
trash too. I mean, you know.
He's a
But it
farmer,
is
he's
funny
I-
because you hear about people that talk about race relations and all that, and then they're from like Washington State, and I'm like,
Minnesota.
yeah, you're like y'all have one black person.
Mhm.
Like, I think, you know, the South probably has more of a legitimate say. Like, there is more of a black population there.
I
I
don't know
know
why
when
this-
the George Floyd race riot started in Minneapolis, everyone I just remember someone saying, like, I can't believe the revolution or whatever is starting in fucking Minneapolis, Minnesota. There's a lot of culture in Minneapolis, but like it's Minnesota. Like the whitest, we're pretty white.
I remember
Not as white as Iowa, maybe. But.
Pretty close.
You guys talking about this. I just remember when I was in high school watching I want to say we didn't have like a ton of black people in there, but there was a decent bit. I remember 2 of them fought and one almost threw the other off a balcony.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you
No,
think is
but-
the whitest state? I'd probably vote North Dakota.
South Dakota or North Dakota, maybe.
South Dakota's
North
got more
Dakota.
Indians.
I'm from South
Yeah.
Dakota, yeah. But the
I'm
Indians
thinking
are
like Vermont.
The Indians are the thing about it though is like the Indians they're so white that they're actually, and I'm not kidding when I'm saying this, they're actually, because my kids are native, they're actually voting in their tribes to allow tribe members to have a smaller percentage of Native American, like whatever blood, however they categorize it, because if they don't, their tribes are going to die because their race is getting whitewashed, basically.
They also
Can't
have,
have.
they have like the poorest
Is that another name for
Indian
diabetes?
reservation in the country too, Pine
If
Ridge.
they go low enough, I'll be able to qualify.
Yeah, Pine
Yeah.
Ridge. Yeah. Pine Ridge.
Elizabeth Warren will be able to qualify.
What what
Can they go that low?
percentages are we talking here? Like,
Caucasian.
What's the
Your
level
shirt
and
says
what do they get?
Caucasian.
You're supposed to be, I think it's at least 1/4 or something like that.
1/4 or 1/8.
And it depends on the
It's
tribe
1/4.
too. It's not like some edict
Monolith,
that goes
yeah.
across. Yeah, it's like tribes are all different. They have their different rules and stuff.
So it's like
Well-
3/5 and you get a vote.
yeah, something like that.
There's some tribes that don't require any blood. Like, they can accept you into the tribe. Like, you're
Buddy, go for it.
Yeah.
he's already got the shit.
But do
What?
it while wearing that shirt.
do
Join
what?
a tribe. Join a tribe.
Oh, how do you know I'm not in one?
That's true.
So
Fair enough.
Listen,
So
listen.
it looks like you were already scalped.
I
If I take my hat off, I probably do too. So
Yeah.
drop the mic. Drop the mic.
listen. We need to talk about something. We need to talk about something as libertarians.
Oh, let's get into the gay shit. The gay libertarian stuff.
It's only gay because it's libertarian.
well, if you wanted to cover the Xinjiang stuff, we could do that
yeah,
now.
let's do
That sounds like a
Okay.
fake name you keep saying, like Xing Shang.
I know. I was actually going to say earlier.
I feel like I'm
that-
saying it incorrectly, but listen,
that's the word.
my
That's the word that I say when people say Asian. I go Xing Shang.
Just be like, oh, Xing Shang.
You've heard the joke like how a Chinese person decides how to name their kid. They just throw a fork down the stairs.
Yeah, throw a pan down the stairs.
Ching Chang Chong.
I'm not.
Yeah, well,
that.
one of the people I did some research on was Li Meng Yan, who that kind of does sound like he just threw a pan down my stairs over there.
Sounds like a pasta. Go.
Yeah, but she was funded by Steve Bannon and Miles Guo for a study that basically was supposed to make it look like China released COVID as a bioweapon. That article should be coming out sometime here soon. It's in the hands of Will Porter at the Libertarian Institute. He said he'll look over it this weekend. But Xinjiang or Xinjiang, however the hell you say it. I'm sorry, my Pittsburgh accent is probably a little too thick.
The Epic Times.
We'll get there.
Okay. All right.
So basically, they, you've heard all the State Department officials saying that there's a genocide going on against the Uyghurs, but it's always kind of funny because, we slaughtered people in the Middle East for the last 20 years or so, but now all of a sudden we're worried about Muslims' rights, and just because they're in China, okay. So there was a reporter out of Germany. His name is Adrian Zenz, who did this report. And if I recall correctly, he was never actually in the Xinjiang province to verify these. Adrian Zenz.
Oh, Zenz.
Yeah, Zenz. And one of the paper that he wrote, he claimed that they were doing a whole ton of net IED, which are these devices that go up into women and basically sterilize them. And the way that the math would have worked out in the paper that he wrote, you would have had to been doing I think it was 6 IED insertions in the women in the Xinjiang province a day, because he was off by a factor of 10. And their claim is that, once again, there's a genocide going on, but because there wasn't enough evidence for these people being murdered, there are camps there. They're not being treated.
How many ovens were there?
You can fit a lot of people in an oven. You'd be surprised. But so basically, they couldn't find any evidence for people being slaughtered en masse. There are, I don't want to say concentration camps, but there are camps where the people are being re-educated, which is very creepy. Yeah. And they're also claiming that people are being harvested, having their organs harvested, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Once again, no evidence of that either.
Sounds a lot like an American public school.
Well, I don't know what public schools you've been to, but I haven't seen kids hanging upside down by their toes. But I don't know. The free state of Florida, maybe.
Well, the thing with the Uyghurs and even this other event that happened during World War II, it's they try to make it that it's some unique evil to cover up the fact that we're doing just as evil shit all around the world.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's just pointing.
So they have to make it comically worse. The fact what China's doing to these people probably is awful.
Yeah. But they're not harvesting their organs or anything like that. And as people get further away from this camp, you have Yeonmi Park, who's gone around the podcast circuit, and she's linked to a whole bunch of think tanks and stuff like that, and saying that there's bodies floating in the river. Some of the stuff just reeks of absolute propaganda. So, of course, we have to psych this up. And then it was funny, actually, a libertarian at one point, I think she wised up, but she said, why is nobody talking about the Uyghurs? You even have Maj Touré saying shit about the Uyghurs. It's do you guys not see right through this propagandistic bullshit? It's so fake. So, yeah, it was the reporter Adrian Zenz actually had to issue a retraction because the reporting they did was so false. And that's where a lot of these claims come from. So now one of the people that are being prosecuted there is actually a religious cult called the Falun Gong, who is literally funded by the CIA. And they also have a lot of tight ties with Epic Times, the same media company that is incredibly hawkish on China. And actually props to them, because they've been running articles written by Dave DeCamp, who's he's a writer for antiwar.com, and he's been on a bunch of bigger podcasts. He's been on Russell Brand now twice. And
Awesome.
they've actually published some of his articles, and I think actually one of them was critical of the China stuff, but they put it, of course, way buried in the article. So part of this whole deal is that some of these people that are being persecuted in the Xinjiang province are part of this Falun Gong cult who have ties to New Tang Dynasty, which once again runs the Epic Times. And if I remember correctly, I think Epic Times bought 70% of all YouTube ads back in like 2019 or 2020. So, what do you think's going on here? It's clearly a propaganda cutout that the CIA is funding to manufacture consent for all the people to say we should go to war with China. So that's why we have to have a humanitarian crisis over there, so that way we can point the finger over at them and say, look, they're screwing us. And then we lay tariffs on them, which actually didn't do anything. Actually, 94% of the cost of the tariffs were borne by Americans. So, you just have all this stuff that's supposed to just make everybody hate China because, once again, what's the cultural thing to say? You get something cheap, this notepad, what is it? It's a cheap piece of shit made in China. So, it's just stuff like that.
So we got
that is
all that kind of stuff right there that you're like, we all know, like us guys, we're all anarchists in the libertarian circles and stuff. Well, I think we all have opinions on this, but what do you guys think like we can do as shit poster dude bros or whatever to like combat that kind of propaganda? Like a lot. Kyle, are you involved in the Libertarian Party at all?
Not anymore.
Not at all. But we all kind of are, or whatever, and whatever political engagement like we get into, like how it is the most highly propagandized thing about our culture, from the left and the right, and even like half of the Libertarian Party is this idea that even though these like China is doing these terrible things to these people or whatever, allegedly, that it is our responsibility to do something about it. And that's where we get into this kind of trouble. Like, I made the tweet from the LP Georgia account, just the Taiwan is part of China.
Little China.
Yeah.
Well, people thought that was me.
You want
that
credit
didn't
for
start some
money.
conversations.
Okay, so if you want my thought,
yeah, go ahead. Go.
Okay, so yeah, if you want my thoughts on what we can do, my approach perhaps is different than most other people's, but I really don't talk politics with people unless they bring it up first. So in my mind, you want to build a solid relationship. Yeah, you want to build a solid relationship with people, so you develop relationship capital. As in, this person believes in you, they believe in, they trust you because they have familiarity with you, you spent time with them, and they know that you're not a piece of shit, right? So once you've kind of established that, then you kind of got your foot in the door, right? So then as this person begins to trust you more and more, they're going to bring up more sensitive topics with you because they believe that you're not going to just lose, fly off the handle. So then once you're there and they bring up, hey, what do you think about this China stuff? Or, hey, what do you think about Ukraine? Like, once again, I'd never bring this up with my coworkers, but they'll start to ask me. And then if, once they bring it up, it's kind of fair game from there. We can walk down the road as we please. But, like they'll look at me and say, hey, like they're sending all this money to Ukraine. What's going on? And then once again, that's kind of my opportunity to say, hey, well, this is what's going on in Ukraine. Look at all this money and this is what it's doing. This is what we should do. And there's also the same thing starting to kind of peek its rear its ugly head over towards China. So you should be aware of this and be aware of all the propaganda that's coming out. And once again, everybody's heard for the last 3 years that the Chinese Communist Party unleashed the China virus on the world to kill all these people. But, if that were true, then why did it, why would they kill their own people first? And especially with a country that's like so unhealthy and malnourished, like they're gonna get I don't know the numbers on this exactly, but in theory they would get hit a lot harder by a disease that affects the less metabolically healthy than all the other countries. Not that America has anything to say in this regards, but why would they do that to their own country? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and if you got to have these one-on-one conversations too, because you get people in a group, their defenses are up that much more. And then you also have to know your shit. Like, you get like one fact wrong, I mean, it discredits everything else you say. It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But all of these motherfuckers in the media can lie all the time with just a kernel of truth, and everyone believes them.
Well, I think it's, like we always joke about, every libertarian has a podcast and stuff like that. But there is something to like counter propaganda. Like we we have to get this stuff out there because, you know, like I said, when I do door-to-door sales, someone will say something correct and I'll just pull on that thread a little bit and be like, maybe you actually understand something. And it's like, I pull a little bit and then it just all falls apart. They're just going completely nuts. And it's like, why do I have to be passionate about politics? I can never talk about it with literally anyone, you know? But it's like, you know, if we have more of these shows, I know how gay Tim Pool is, but he does platform every once in a while some good people, and then you can follow those people into a better, you know, you can dig. He's like the surface level, and if you dig deep into some of this stuff, sometimes you can go the right direction.
Well, like
So
even like me being
same with Joe Rogan. Sometimes he's all right.
Even how I got into this like ideological spectrum is through Legion of Skanks.
Right.
You know, it's like I was watching Joe Rogan and he mentioned this Legion of Skanks and I was like, that just sounds funny. So I checked it out. And this was after I found Jordan Peterson through Joe Rogan, and Jordan Peterson pulled me out. I know he's kind of getting crazy now, but he pulled me out of the socialist thinking. And then I was listening to Legion of Skanks thinking it was funny. Started watching Big J's shows. That's hilarious. Started watching Louis J. Gomez's shows. That's hilarious. Who's this other guy? Dave Smith. He's got a podcast on politics. I'm politically homeless. Let's check this out, you know? And then like 5 years later, here I am, you know what I mean?
My journey started with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, mine really wasn't too much further off. Mine more so started with like Stefan Molyneux and Milo Yiannopoulos. That's where I really started digging into politics. But you know, it's kind of to you guys' point though. Like when it comes to the Legion of Skanks, you already developed like this relationship in your mind with Legion of Skanks because you liked all these people. You thought they were funny, and then through that, you're like, okay, well, what else do they have to offer? So you saw that, and then once again, Dave Smith. Well, he's a libertarian. He's a very, very good libertarian. And then from there, you know, oh well, I like these ideas. These ideas are going to be something that I'm going to adopt as well. I think a lot more people need to kind of approach it that way because if I were to just kick the door in at work and just scream and point a finger in everybody's face about how they need to know about the genocide in Yemen or how, you know, we sent $113 billion over to Ukraine, they're going to be like, I'm fucking nuts. And rightfully so.
And I think like one of the really big things that a lot of people miss is we often say it, I hear it anyway, is you can't legislate morality. You can. It's the same thing with culture. It's the same thing with all aspects of life. You can't legislate it, and so you need to be willing to have those one-on-one conversations. Which means you need to be willing to educate yourself. You need to be willing to put in the time to read the different resources that are available, to listen to people who have knowledge about the different issues, and you need to have a knowledgeable defense. And it's not that you need to be defensive about it. But when you have opportunities to find common ground to be able to build that relationship a little bit, and then, but like you said, you find those areas where there's a little string, and being able to encourage that in such a way where you're not turning a person off, but you're building that relationship, and you're saying, you know, you're feeding into what is correct, and maybe you, if you build a good relationship, you can start challenging what's incorrect. Well, and so it takes that one-on-one. You can't legislate this kind of stuff, and so we just need to really practice what we preach and put in the time.
I find too that like sometimes though, when I poke holes in people's thinking, they close back up. Like people get that comfortable thing, you know, and then they start talking and they go, and you know, Trump's a fucking douchebag and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, totally war criminal. And they're like, wait, what? War criminal? I'm like, yeah, just like, you know, like Obama and everything, same thing. And then all of a sudden they like close back up again.
Yeah, I've learned in sales to just agree with whatever bullshit thing they say.
I'm talking about a friend that I've gotten really close to for the last few years, and he's like been opening up to me. He's a lot more left wing than I thought because he's always railing against woke shit. So I was like, oh, he's, you know, maybe
is railing.
Well, sometimes you got to learn when to stop too. Like when you feel like that you're starting to lose them. Then you can just back off and let them process what you said, and then come back to them later, and then you can go farther. You know, sometimes like they'll walk away from the conversation and they'll think about it more.
And I find
often afterwards,
often it's asking for more explanation because people will talk themselves into an unraveling argument. If you ask the right questions and just say, so you said this earlier, how does that jive with this? Because I don't understand that. You know, it's oftentimes like if people have incohesive arguments, they may not know it, but I mean, that's really what ultimately what we're fighting against is a whole bunch of people who haven't developed a good understanding of how the world works, and so their arguments aren't going to stand up. And so you just have to help them understand. Don't poke holes in their arguments. Help them poke the holes.
You know, the last time I had a cigar was at your bachelor party, and then you guys all told me I was holding my cigar really weird.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm doing the whole time is like, how am I supposed to, what's the right way to hold it?
Yeah, like an undercover cop. Like an undercover cop.
You were holding it like you were going to serve it to a table.
Listen, I don't
This is
mean
how
to
I was
be
holding it. Is
No,
that
you're
the
like
wrong, is there a wrong way to hold a cigar?
Listen,
Jeez.
listen. I don't mean to be a buzzkill, but I know
You're
my
about
good
to be a
friend
buzzkill.
Will. He's my hetero life partner.
I love it.
And when he asked that question, I don't think what he was looking for was read a book and make friends.
No, I was actually, that's funny you said that, because I was actually going to pull back to that too. To Will's point, is there a space? I can't hear you, Will.
Is he all right?
Is there a? Can anyone
His
else?
mic's
hear
You're
me?
off.
muted.
Nice mics.
No.
You're muted, Will.
I can read his lips.
I was talking so much shit, but we'll
Man, shit.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
try to keep this podcast clean.
But
so
to Will's point, is there a way for us to engage online and publicly
here's the,
in public
I
spaces?
can tell you what not to do.
here's the thing. All three of us have the same sales job. So we all know you don't sell people logically. You have to sell them emotionally. And like, if there's someone who's really passionate about the truth and just digs into politics for years, like us nerds, yeah, it's really easy to just steer them and give them a book or something like that. But for the most part, you try to push back on something or try to explain something to them, their mind just doesn't take it because they're watching just Fox News. And that's all they can. And then as soon as you leave, they're going to watch more Fox News, and that's what they're ingesting. So that's why it's like, a lot of it just, if you want mass appeal, if you want to appeal to one person, that's fine. But if you want mass appeal, you have to find something that reaches a lot of people, basically.
Well, yeah, like at least half the population is women, so facts and logic won't work.
Well, that's okay.
Well,
Transition.
we could pull on that thread a little bit because I have a lot of thoughts on specifically
All right.
women and demographics. And
We're
Transition.
canceled.
All right, go for it, Kyle. I want
Okay.
to hear this.
Oh,
So
God, we gotta hear another freaking lecture. Oh.
Is this the redheaded libertarian take or different?
God, no, I hate that bitch. I fucking hate her. So
You hate everyone, and I appreciate that.
no. If you meet me in person, I'm actually very, very friendly, and I usually end up shoving. I usually end up shoving bottles of Crown in people's faces. But the 19th Amendment discussion is always very interesting, not for necessarily the reasons that a lot of people really think about, but like women are the largest voting demographic in the United States. Women hold a majority of the debt, right? Women hold a majority of student debt. So, and once again, what do most of the Democrats always campaign on? They campaign on being pro-choice, which, we have culturally taught women that it is, your bodily autonomy is decided on like with abortion and stuff like that. So when it comes to women in politics, it's very important that Democrats keep women polarized because once again, they're the largest voting bloc in America. And once again, they hold the majority of the debt. So if you can kind of hold that over their head, then you'll get these bitches voting Democrat every single time.
That's
Student debt cancellation. I mean, that
Strictly benefited
abortion
women.
probably won them was the reason why they did so good last year's midterms.
we have a lot of conversations about woke, about how like wokeism has infected our culture and how it's, I don't know how you guys, or my perspective is just, it's very infectious, it's very cancerous, and it's deep down, it's way deeper than we think it is. It comes from a long time ago. It's old ideas that are budding up now through generations of it being groomed and passed on and groomed and passed on and growing. And even I find that even women who don't like wokeism, like a good libertarian woman, right, who doesn't like wokeism, is still susceptible to feminism. Now, I think that what people don't realize is that feminism is, at least in my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong or what do you guys think of this, but it seems to me, like in my experience,
Mansplain away.
there's this deep sense of feminism that's like baked in the cake that goes deeper than wokeism. And maybe it's part of wokeism. Maybe it's part of the way that wokeism has grown so much. But it's like I hear good libertarian women with solid perspectives on a lot of things still say
feminists.
things, and even if they say they're not feminists and they don't like feminism, they'll say things that I'm like, that's feminism.
Give me an example.
I think
Yeah,
we
they-
gotta look at the wokeism.
I
and all
need-
this
I need
kind
an
of stuff. It's
example.
like finding a
So like the
balance.
wage gap.
Like-
When women bring up the wage gap.
But not libertarian.
Look at
women.
Will's like, just interrupted.
Oh, sorry.
It's all good.
You
Go
can
ahead,
see
Will.
it in his eyes.
Go ahead, Will. But I do want an
I was
example
trying to
from
satisfy
Derek.
you, so you can go.
No,
Only
we're
Derek
all
can
cool.
satisfy
We're
me.
all cool fellas, but I'm just saying, like, I think we do need to find like a little bit of a balance to like we're talking about this,
Balance with feminism.
a balance with wokeism in this kind of way. Yeah, for real. Like it is like, there's half dudes and half ladies, and there is a way. There are ways to communicate with ladies more than just going, "Hey, we're gonna pay off all your debt."
Will, you're kind of the woman slayer. Like you would be the expert on how to talk to women.
No, not me, brother. But like, I think
I could give you some pointers.
I bet. But, but I think like we kind of lean into some of our misogyny to be a little edgy, and I'm with you guys anytime like online just being like the 19th Amendment. But I think we do got to kind of like stick to that as a trolling mechanism and more like work on like the wokeism as a reaction to the almost like the traditionalism or whatever, and vice versa. And we get into this kind of like cycle of a culture war that we end up alienating and attracting people into this thing. And then we gloss over as they sell us a war with China that we're never going to really fight, and they just make a bunch of fucking money on, and then vice versa.
I do know a few red-pilled women that are totally for repealing the 19th. Though, like they look at the demographic maps of how the elections would have turned out if women didn't vote, and they're like, "I want that." Okay, women shouldn't vote.
Yeah,
that is technically like an answer to your question, though, because if you want to know how to change culture radically, really quickly, repeal the 19th Amendment, and everything goes super right wing, super quick.
Yeah. I would say that pretty much any woman that's been raised probably in the last like 70 years is a feminist, whether she explicitly says it or not.
That's what I'm saying.
This is so culturally ingrained into people,
It's
even
baked
like
in the
men.
cake.
Right.
What do you even call it? Like, how do you describe a feminist?
Someone that basically.
Here's your example, Sam. Right? Because you're looking for this example.
Yeah,
so
satisfy me.
I'll talk to a woman who will say like, she's not a feminist. She's not a feminist. She doesn't like feminism. She doesn't like wokeism. She's conservative culturally, libertarian minded, blah blah blah. But then she'll say like, something like, well, traditionally men have always dominated women, and traditionally men have like the reason that these laws and rules and cultural standards are the way they are is because men have always been in charge of women or dominated women over the course of history. Or the way it used to be is that men blah blah blah. And it's like, let's take for example, they might say like, women used to have to get permissions from their fathers to marry or something like that. It was like, let's look into that. Why is that? Is there maybe a chance, I don't know, that men were being protective of their daughters and that's a good thing? You could frame it as a bad thing, but you could just as easily frame it as a good thing, especially with the lack of knowledge of what was happening at the time.
Well, and the other aspect is like men would have to go to war and just get slaughtered and
but it's
all
just
this stuff too.
It's just like this vague vision of the past with no evidence or examples of how men were tyrannizing women throughout history.
Yeah, because we ran society on a thing of like, oh my God, we're all indoors, and if we go outside at night, we're gonna die.
Right, and it's like they were.
Everybody was like,
women aren't allowed.
We're now living like in a world where, guys, we're not going back to that, fellas. Like, ladies can vote, and I'm sure any like lady watching this is just fucking like, fuck you, motherfucker.
Well, like, women aren't allowed to. Women aren't allowed to work on the farm because we're dainty and we have to stay inside. It's like, well, maybe that comes from a time when it was like don't worry, I'll take care of it. I don't want you to have to go outside. You can stay in. It was almost like a chivalrous thing.
When you
I mean,
learn
and
about
the other aspect of
Richard
it is
Deeds
like
says
on
this
that.
is,
Have you guys seen on that show Whatever when they're talking about
oh,
they're
God,
talking
don't
about
watch that.
no, I understand, but some of the clips where like the chicks are just like so out of touch with reality, and they like what they're looking for in men, their expectations that men are going to find them attractive with the lifestyles they live are just insane. It's insanity what people believe today. And so I mean, it's this woke mind virus that people talk about, but I mean, I think this is culturally like ingrained at such a deep level, like this feminism. It's been for so many generations that I mean, I not to beat a dead horse and go back to it, and I don't mean like just on a one-on-one basis, but like whether it's in podcast form or anything. But I mean, I think we really do have to learn our histories, because the schooling system, our parents failed us by putting us into a broken schooling system, and the schooling system failed the children, and so nobody knows their history, and so we are doomed to repeat it. Perspective, exactly, perspective. And so if this is what has been taken from us as our history, somebody has to reteach history, and we have to make it engaging. We have to make it, and we have to be persuasive in it. So that puts it on people who know what's at stake to take it upon themselves to learn how to persuade other people. And I think whether it's on podcast form, whether it's trolling people on Twitter, it's doing it in a way that engages responses, and it tries to get people back engaged. And that's also just on a one-on-one, anytime you have the opportunity to talk about it. I mean, I know my life, the number one thing I talk about with anybody is I shouldn't say it's politics, because it's sales, because I sell, and so that's what I talk about most. But if it's not sales, it's politics, because and it's not politics, it's history. But it's history that has to do with current political events, and it's talking about it's correcting people's notions. And I don't do it in a way that's correcting, but I do it very conversationally. We have long form, hour-long conversations about a topic, and we just discuss it both very openly, asking questions, and in a roundabout way, we correct maybe I change my opinion sometimes. I'm always open to that, but that's part of the process. Yeah. And so as long as we're having authentic conversations with people, I feel like I know so many people, and yeah, it takes a long time. I know people who from back in college 15 years ago through now who are just starting to change their opinion. But you know what? I had those conversations all along the way, and I know that I'm not saying that was all of it, but that plants seeds all along the way. And if we're willing to do that, I think people do wake up. Do you think? I know that's beating a dead horse, Will. I'm sorry, but
do you think that there's an aspect?
Let me just interject.
Well, that's your job. Right?
Let me just interject for the sake of the horse and read some comments. So Zach Vernell says gays love Ohio for some reason. Okay. That's probably just chemically because of that train, right? And then
they're putting chemicals in the water that are making the frog.
David Bray says tell Kyle to get Luongo pilled, and he says disenfranchise women. And then he says, Derek, it's cultural Marxism. Just say it. And he says, Will is wrong about where wokeism comes from. And he says, I wonder if you guys read the comments section.
Listen, we can talk about all like this global stuff that we can't really have any change over. But I have a concern that got me in a lot of trouble, which I don't care. But I don't understand how, if we have people that continue to be public about leaving the Libertarian Party, and that tends to be the only thing that they say, and constantly demean the Libertarian Party.
What the hell else are they doing? Yeah.
If I tell them to go fuck yourself, or tell them to go, like, we get it, go away, it seems like you're only here doing this because you want attention. You cunt.
Right.
That's the QU.
Or
now, here's the deal. We are instructed to, if you don't like what people say, just ignore it. Okay, but you have people that talk about what kind of big donors they are and how much they're not contributing to these evil people and blah, 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 blah.
Are you talking about?
Ignore that. But if I call her a no-no word, then one of the national board people come in and have to step up and defend the honor of and make it known that she is welcome in the Libertarian Party. And my whole thing is, why? Why do we want people like that?
So
Like,
here's,
I
have a lot to say.
I don't like.
I think we're getting into the gay shit now.
Yep, we're getting into the gay shit. All right. So whenever someone, because we have a small party, whenever someone leaves the party, there's like this weird thing where we just fall apart and worship that person and beg them on our hands and knees to come back. I literally joke about pretending to quit the Libertarian Party all the time so that people will beg me to come back. I hinted at one time.
Yes, you did.
The whole attitude changed. Like, and at the time I wasn't really even doing anything. I was just posting memes. And like the whole attitude changed, like, oh no, don't quit.
Yeah,
and
we
it's
love
like,
you, Sam. You do so much. We appreciate you so much.
It's like,
I just post memes.
Literally the least amount of. I mean, there's a lot more harder working people. I do,
buddy.
but anyway.
You hear that? You hear that, buddy? I think we know what we need to do to get appreciated around here.
You guys make it sound like a
understand,
job.
like,
But it's like Martha Bueno. Didn't she quit the Libertarian Party? Why is she like every other?
All I know about this lady is that she wants us to fucking help regime change Venezuela, and she's quitting the Libertarian Party for the 50th fucking time. And we gotta fucking worship this bitch. And
she has an OnlyFans.
I thought she actually showed fucking lewd images on her OnlyFans. Buddy told me she don't even do that. What are we doing here, man? What the fuck?
Well, that's a hell of a way to admit
it's like
you
sex work is work, but she's not even doing that.
Yeah. Like, they were sitting here giving us shit because we're misogynists for not liking Martha Bueno because she's Latina and has an OnlyFans.
Hey, I do not
Bueno.
like Martha Bueno. That is the only thing that's going on here. I do not like her.
So that's what we're talking about.
That's what it is, brother. Fucking Buddy called her a cunt on the internet with a Q, and so it was cute. And
the British,
he gets fucking like dead named. Yeah, they dead named Buddy and other ex comments. Hey, we're gonna call they fucking
dang
our fucking resident Minnie in Georgia.
Dang,
I don't know. Ryan Graham, that's the dude. He is such a fucking vagina about everything that we do in the Libertarian Party of Georgia. We cannot have zero fun without this guy sitting here condemning every single thing we do. Like
I've never heard of a lazy Hispanic person, first of all, and there's nothing worse than a lazy sex worker. I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
Well, she's not that.
Yeah.
She's not that. Like, she started an OnlyFans to like, as like, oh my gosh, she started an OnlyFans, but it's just like a content thing for
one of those things.
Stuff. And she does, and I guess she does a lot of like liberty work, but just like Will was saying, like, she has some bad takes, but it's just like she can't just go do her liberty stuff. She always just
like, why doesn't she talk about that?
Right, that's what I'm saying. And so why is it so like? We're just supposed to ignore that, but if I just like say, just stop doing that, like this is crazy.
So
I'm the bad guy.
Normally it's called Normally it's called OnlyFans, but for her it's just called OnlyFan.
But I'm not even into like trashing her. But my thing was like, I don't understand all these white knights that came to her rescue when I'm like, she hates you. Why are you doing
white
this?
Knights? If you want to see white knights, go ahead, rip on stepdads and single moms. That'll bring out all the white knights. Believe me, I've been victim of that a few times.
You go too base. We're over here going tee hee hee. You got to go tee hee hee. You got to go like 19th. Tee hee hee.
I'll try that next time.
So here's the thing that I do a lot of times when I'm talking about like the Libertarian Party or even the caucus. I get just as irritated with people being like, I'm leaving the Mises caucus because they fucking blah blah blah. It's like, okay, you can leave and have your disagreements, but you're just trying to get attention and clicks by making a statement. Anybody, no matter how based or good of a libertarian they are, if they leave the party, my response is just like, peace. I'm not going to have an argument with
you. Even like,
why do we get announcements every time people do this? Like,
it's not a fucking airport.
Yeah.
Right? Even like someone got kicked out of the Mises caucus or out of a chat, and then they freak out. It's like, it's just a caucus. What? It's not your life, or it's not like it's,
you know what
just
the
a
answer
caucus.
is?
Who cares?
Politics is lame, and it makes us all lame for caring about it. We do get down with all this like deep politics about like the foreign policy and shit, and that is some like important work and shit. But our collective will trying to like get together some sort of political movement to combat this kind of shit is the worst. It's the worst. We have to like connect ourselves with these people that are just
that's your new nickname, collective will.
I actually just got, before we started this, I got done having a little conversation with David Brady and I was telling him, like the liberty movement will never be a united front, and it probably shouldn't.
Well, so I've got a lot of thoughts on this, but so one thing I would say is like with the Libertarian Party, a lot of times I use the analogy of like a relationship because we have relationships with these entities, right? Like right now, the Libertarian Party is going through an identity crisis, right? You got to like, if you think of it as a person, it's going through an identity crisis. It's trying to figure out who it is, right?
Mutilate genitals.
So it's like, if you are so toxic that when you leave a person with an identity crisis, that you have to make a statement and play a victim about it. And then that person with an identity crisis is so desperate to get you back that it's like, oh my God, please don't leave me. It's kind of gross. It's like a gross feeling, you know? So what we need to do is try to make this entity more mature, right? Not be so desperate for membership, because we do need membership. We want membership. That's like what I do. That's my thing. I recruit party members, right? That's like my whole thing. And I don't ever go, oh, I'm sorry, whatever, come back to us, please. It's like, no, goodbye, because I don't want to be part of the culture that acts desperate for people, because what happens is people get turned off by that and they don't want to be part of it. Right. So instead of being desperate for you, we're more welcoming to the person that wants us to be the thing. Now, I understand that we're part of a thing that's kind of become, it's got its toxic elements.
I stopped watching soap operas because this is way better.
It's got its unhealthy qualities and dynamics and relationships. I understand that. So I understand what people want to leave. I understand that people don't have the emotional capacity for it. There was one guy I recruited, and he almost immediately left because of all the party fighting. I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, man, why are you leaving?" He said, "All because of this and that, and blah, blah, blah. I'd rather focus time on my kids and my job." And I said, "Well, man, I hope that those things go well with you. I actually think that taking care of those things is an important part of the liberty movement." So, and I didn't ask for him to come back or anything. I just wanted to touch base with what happened. And then I said, and he did it quietly and whatever, and wanted to do his own thing. And I understand that, because that's healthy for him. He doesn't have the emotional capacity to deal with this shit all the time.
Right.
So that's fine. Right. I don't mind that. But at the same time, it's like, we need more people who do have the emotional capacity to deal with it, to be like, we're part of this. We're going to engage when we want to engage, and then disengage when we don't, when it's not worth engaging in. Don't be desperate for the people that leave, trying to get them back, because that's not going to attract more people, right?
Yeah, I don't know why we just keep, like, even our national badasses that we put in power, like, still coming to defend this lady. I don't know why you just want to be losers.
Well, I think what people need to remember is this party is really ultimately all about messaging. It's about changing culture. And
says who? Says who? Like,
that's what it is. That's what it is. And you can change things on a bigger level with doing that. But that's the reality of this. And my point with that is, if we get caught up on the bad messaging, that's what goes out. That's what people look at the Libertarian Party. They look at the message of it. And if the message, to your point, if the message is if what people see when they look at the party is always infighting, that's the message they see. We have a message to share, and if we're always infighting, that message is getting blurred and lost.
And I disagree. So because it's politics, a lot of people are just like, stop fighting, guys, stop fighting. It's like, no, we're a whole bunch of fighters. We're gonna fight. That's just how it is. But we got to be like respectful of each other when we do it. So and we got to have the goal of liberty, not just our egos.
So two things to that is, one of the ways to approach this is in a way that we all care, right? Well, I don't know about everybody, but I know a few of us care. One way to approach this is to always have like a bigger picture. That's why I try to see it as like, this thing that's having a personality crisis with a relationship, because I'm trying to look at it like from outside of it instead of just in it, in all the little arguments and chat rooms and all the things. Try to step back and look at it and be like, okay, we need to, I agree with you to an extent, and to you an extent too, but we need to make sure that if we're engaging and continuing, that we're seeing past all of the arguments and drama to the greater goal. And I think if we keep that in mind, whatever we do along the way, as long as we don't get that guiding light in front of us too blurry or confusing, as long as we keep that in front of us and we keep going, eventually those things will shed off and die. Those people will leave and eventually shut up. And the people who are willing to stick around are going to stick around. And then eventually we'll stop having an identity crisis. We'll know who we are and we'll move forward.
And if you have a compelling message, it will naturally grow the base.
Well, like I said in the show we did with Tom Luongo, I'm under no illusions that the Libertarian Party is ever going to get control of the levers of power. So
Right.
I use it for mostly networking and just a way to spread messaging. But it's better done in person. So like showing up to events and stuff, or even just hanging out with other libertarians who aren't as red-pilled as us.
We can wield
And that's what I like to do, and just have these conversations with them, and then and also learn from people. Because
we can wield influence, but we're never going to take over, because people are binary. They're always going to choose one or the other. So, like, if we get somehow super popular, the Republicans would just be a little bit more libertarian.
Well, and the reality is this: the most powerful influence you can have, no matter what party you are, is your messaging. That's how you change culture. If you think about like how stagnant culture was for so many years with different parties and just how volatile it's been, it's all based on messaging. Like that's
I've been informed it's based on ballot access. That's the point I'm trying to make.
But
like
the messaging is what the general population, why the general population buys that.
Don't you dare touch ballot access, buddy.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm joking.
But it's all about messaging. Again, if you can do better messaging, if you can convey a better message and get that across, then people will see exactly what you're talking about.
Last year when I was gathering signatures and stuff, I told a few people on like the Discord, like, hey, I even had a conversation or two with some people and just, red pilled them on some things. And a few of them were like, oh, no, don't waste time with that. Just keep going and get more signatures. We don't have time to oh, Jesus Christ. This is not what I'm here to do.
Yeah. So what I think happens is libertarians get discouraged. They don't think they can win. And so then it just becomes about themselves and about the petty stuff. So they lose track of the goal, and that's where all the infight, all the pettiness comes from.
Well, in sports, when teams are winning, they do pretty, they get along. Things are great. When they're not winning, that's when you start having problems in the locker room. Well, the Libertarian Party has never won.
And here's a question to pose too, because I've had conversations with someone about this recently.
We are almost done with the gay section.
Okay.
I had to grab 3 beers because it was getting that gay.
I can only get gay if I have a few beers.
Guys, as a resident liberal here, I think we've used gay as a pejorative too much. I stepped on that word. But
okay. Let's get in.
Let's try to wokify a little bit. Get a little balance to this.
Check the comments.
Let's all talk about. Let's go around the room and let's talk about our favorite woman. Sam used to.
My favorite woman is my wife.
Oh,
that's gay.
There you go.
So faggy.
Domesticated. No, I mean, for real, she's awesome. She hates. She's not a libertarian because she just does not care about politics at all. So it's a good balance for us.
It's the way a lot of women are, really.
Like I try to sneak in something.
How you're the worst.
I try to sneak in something libertarian here or there. Like she'll open up and say something political, and then I'll just hammer her with libertarian something, and then we're done. But slowly.
My wife really makes me fight.
Is this answer going to be everybody's wife? Are we just going to run through and go everybody's wife?
Yeah.
Let's cancel the bit.
Yeah.
I was going to say my neighbor's wife.
I am legally under obligation to say my wife. Like if I said, I can't say it. Right.
You couldn't say your girlfriend?
I wouldn't want it anyway, but I'm just saying.
I was going to say my favorite woman. I was going to lean into your bit and say Blair White.
An acceptable answer.
Nice.
Derek was gonna say his mom.
My singer's pretty awesome, and she's pretty hot too, but she's married, so.
But here's a question,
Tell
though.
us about your band, Kyle. Like, I'm into it.
Yeah,
I like a few of the hits. Like, what are y'all?
And then we got to get
where
into
y'all
health.
at? Like, what's
I'm gonna force you guys to talk about health.
Oh no, I'm gonna go to bed.
That's healthy.
That's actually
healthy,
a healthy
yeah.
thing to do.
Maybe your
Oh.
hair will grow back.
Yeah, so
Hey, like I'm college educated, right?
He does kind of look like Fred Durst with the red shirt and the sunglasses.
just needs a red hat.
Not as much as Clint Russell.
Discount
These
Fred.
goddamn Yankees are gonna belittle us, buddy. Remember it. The South will rise again, you fucks. Remember it.
That's not a liberal thing to say.
I
Yeah.
have a degree in biology.
Oh my gosh, what's a woman?
It took Matt Walsh a lot of money and a whole movie to figure that question out, apparently.
What is
Or
it?
as we say in the Minnesota Libertarian Party, what is a woman's caucus?
What is a woman's
What? No,
caucus?
what is a woman's affiliate? Long story there.
Nice.
They
Well,
have- they
well,
have-
speaking
they have-
of-
We not go
they
into
have a
that.
men's.
I
You
asked-
probably shouldn't.
There, the Black Mutualist, he posted that he needed the period blood. What was it, Will? He needed.
Say that again.
Everybody
I think we
leaned
needed
in.
a woman who was on her period in like the full moon or
In like the next full moon or whatever. Like I don't know if you do. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I've heard of him.
Yes.
I don't follow him. Right?
He's
He's
a
the dude that
libertarian.
wears that fucking stupid
Yes.
ass
Yep.
circle
Let's
thing,
just
right?
leave it at he's an influencer.
No, it's not. He's into
Tiara.
all like the metaphysical, whatever. That's
Yeah,
whatever.
Georgia libertarian.
Yeah, he's
He
very
adds a little
different from me.
flavor to our group of misfits.
Yeah, he's very different from us, and that's why I like it. He's great. But he never got back to me. He said he needed that, and then I asked him, because he's a mutualist, so like he's on the far left side.
Right.
I said, well, I've been told to believe that some men have periods too. Will that work? You want me to save mine for you?
Don't
I
deny.
I
it.
mean, I have had large dumps that did get a little bloody.
This is important stuff.
He didn't get back to me. I don't know why.
All I gotta say is
We'll bring that up in the
go
next-
back 10
Hey,
years in
let's
history,
bring
and
that up
that
in
wouldn't
the
have
next-
even been a question.
I'm gonna interject and catch up on comments.
Yes.
Let's see. The Libertarian Party needs more Afro men.
Okay.
Lauren Leanna Bowen. And then David Bray says Buddy versus Toad at cage match. Win. Forrest Mommy says that Dum Dum sparked off Coloradoans. Is Leak a revolution out here crazy? Here, you want to read some?
Well, I just want to say about the cage match thing. I've been saying this for a while now that I think that this would be like the best time in our culture to bring back celebrity deathmatch. Do you guys remember that?
Sure.
Fuck yeah.
Get it on.
Yeah.
I started saying that with the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. I was like, dude, how funny would it be to have celebrity deathmatch, Kyle Rittenhouse versus zombie George Floyd?
Oh no! There's got to be a skateboard involved. Kyle Rittenhouse versus Tony Hawk.
There you go.
Do you guys know if Tony Hawk is left or right-handed? Because I heard Kyle Rittenhouse will turn him into a true lefty. Disarm him.
Solid joke there. All right, read them off.
They're just talking about Florida.
Someone
It's
listens to
nothing
Ryan Dawson.
important.
Oh, nothing good.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
dude.
Lord,
He had that. He had
one thing
with
about
Ryan Dawson. He had
there-
like a 3-minute bit on Kyle Rittenhouse. It was fucking gold.
What'd you say?
Yes.
What are your health questions?
What are the what?
Your health questions.
Oh, okay. So I've been sick 6 times this year already.
Mhm.
Well, I know you're not a doctor. Okay, well, just give us.
God damn.
I know,
I have to think of a good question. I have to think of a good question. Okay,
Damn.
seed oils, go.
Seed oils aren't bad.
Damn. God damn.
I'm gonna go. It's very late.
No, buddy, you have to stay. You're under contract.
Fire me.
Jesus.
That's great.
Thanks for joining, buddy.
Seed oils are not bad for you at all. It's just a lot of people focusing on mechanistic data where basically they dump a whole bunch of this shit onto like a petri dish and see that the cells act all fucked up. The human outcome data is actually pretty favorable towards seed oils, despite what people may think. I think it was episode 1. Oh no, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I had Alan Flanagan on, who runs Alinea Nutrition. He also does like a lot of research into this kind of stuff, and yeah, seed oils just really aren't that bad for you when you look at the human outcome data versus mechanistic data. A lot of the people
explain human outcome data and mechanism, or the second one.
Okay, so like we'll start with like human outcome data, basically like where they do human randomized controlled trials, where they basically take, you know, people and then kind of sometimes they'll use them as like their own controls. So like, let's say in like an exercise program, they'll have people run like a certain resistance training program for like 2 weeks, do what's called a washout period, so they can kind of like destigmatize themselves, and then they're their own control. So in like the following 2 weeks, they'll do a different program just to kind of see how people react to these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so like when it came to the seed oil stuff, there was a study done where they actually overfed people with saturated fat, which is like your fat that's in most like animal proteins and animal foods, and then they overfed them in what's called linoleic acids, which are most of your seed oils, so like your canola oil, rapeseed, just all the ones that you hear people freaking out about, and they are in everything. Soybean oil is the real big one. And what they found is actually when people overate on saturated fat, that they got a lot more liver fat, and they were their blood lipid levels were actually a lot worse than that of people who ate seed oils. So I'm not saying you should go out and drink a gallon of canola oil, but I really think like the devil is in the fact that like seed oils don't provide you any nutrients or satiation, but they provide you a lot of calories. And it's the same deal with sugar. Like sugar tastes really good, so it's hard to stop eating it. Same deal when you put oils all over stuff. Shit tastes really good, so you don't want to stop eating it. So it's really just like the energy toxicity that you can get from foods with seed oils or with sugars that make them so bad. Now, I don't even want to say bad because there's no inherently like really bad foods. It's just like, well, what are your goals? If your goals are to gain weight, then maybe you want to have something that's a little bit more hyper palatable, so that way you can eat more, because for some people, eating in an energy surplus for a sustained amount of time might be a little bit difficult. If you're looking to lose weight, okay, well, maybe it's better to opt in for whole foods, so that way you're not eating so much, because like a big salad or like a bowl of popcorn like I had earlier, 2 bowls of popcorn is like at most, if you don't absolutely drench it in butter, that's like 80. Yeah, well, then you significantly change the amount of calories that are in it, and the how satiating it is. But like 2 bowls of popcorn without any butter, that's like 80 calories, and that's a lot of freaking
Sometimes
food.
I do make unbuttered popcorn just for a light snack that I don't have to feel bad about.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good idea. And you get like chocolate syrup, calorie-free chocolate syrup or low-calorie chocolate syrup. That I
do
put
feel
on top
really
of that.
dumb for throwing out a couple bottles of canola oil about a month ago. So
I mean, it's not like I don't use the stuff, but I don't avoid it either.
I hear
out there a little bit. What do I fry my chicken in?
Okay, I'm sorry. I got one more thing to tag on there. I'll get to that here in a second. You could actually fry it in like animal fats, and I heard that actually tastes a lot better.
Dude,
I've
I
never
buy
tried it.
lard
That
from
actually
a
tastes
local
the
meat
best
market all
in
the time.
tallow.
It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I would definitely try frying stuff in that. Like Buffalo Wild Wings actually fries all their stuff in animal, in not lard, ghee. No, not ghee. What the fuck?
Well, ghee is just just
Yeah, no, it's
butter.
unclarified, but yeah, it's unclarified
clarified
butter. I'm trying to remember what they tallow. That's it. That's the word.
Yeah.
Tallow.
So lard is pig fat, beef is tallow.
Yeah. So
I worked at a meat market part time for about 9 months. Or 10
got you.
months.
So mechanistic data is basically.
but you're
just
not
like,
a doctor.
Yeah, no, I'm not a doctor, but
No, I'm talking to Brett. Yeah, but yeah.
Oh, my bad.
No, but I've helped butcher a lot of pigs and cows though.
Is
So,
there
like-
a topic that Brett doesn't know something about? Like he never ceases to impress me.
We're kind of getting on the edge of it.
Okay.
I think.
but mechanistic data.
Well, I went through a phase where I was trying to like get healthy. So
Oh, maybe
Fair
maybe
enough.
I'm wrong.
Okay, so yeah, like mechanistic data is basically just where they take like theoretical models or like get stuff in literal like a petri dish and then interact these cells together and see how they turn out. But the problem with doing that is that when you extract that to humans, it doesn't always correlate. So like when it comes to diet pop, a lot of people freaked out about the mechanistic and even like rodent data on this. But like when you exploded these rodent models and translated it to humans, you would have to drink about 36 Diet Cokes a day to get the effect that they were getting in some of these mice. So my opinion on seed oils, don't worry about them. If you're really worried about them, just get like avocado oil or olive oil if you're worried about them. And then as far as artificial sweeteners go, don't worry about those either. They're perfectly fine. There's no real significant data to suggest they're bad for you.
Well, here's the thing.
I feel like that I want to push back on just about everything you said. I don't want to turn this into like a debate though, so I'm not going to. The one thing that I do want to
what do you take issue with? Go ahead.
So with artificial sweeteners, aspartame for instance, and Diet Coke, it's not the artificial sweetener that causes the problem, but what they've shown is the artificial sweetener triggers a response in your body where you it triggers a response in your body where your body expects it's going to have an influx
something
of food,
sure influx
sugar.
of yeah. So I know where you're going with this.
So what it does is it increases your appetite, and so they've shown well, so this is what I've seen is so it increases your appetite, and so people are more. It causes other cravings.
Yeah. Okay, so there have been randomized control trials done where they actually found that people who drink artificial sweeteners versus water, actually lose more weight than people who do not. So I'm not saying that aspartame is necessarily a fat burner, but what it does suggest is that people who actually have artificial sweeteners, because they're 0-calorie beverages, actually tend to lose more weight than people who don't. So that being said, there may be a very, 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 very mild insulin response to drinking artificial sweeteners, but you have to focus on the area under the curve, not just if you get an insulin response at all, which is what a lot of keto people freak out about, is the insulin response. Well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you have a huge insulin response. You may feel like a little bit of a crash, but the thing is that still at the end of the day, you have to be in energy deficit to lose weight and energy, positive energy balance to gain weight. And once again, you may expect something sweet, but it's just not borne out in the literature.
I understand what you're saying, but I would disagree again on aspartame. I've read some of the literature, and it does specifically talk about the.
Okay, then what about the studies where
there are a lot of other studies with other artificial sweeteners. I think aspartame, specifically, is the one that I've read the studies on. So I can't really speak to any of the others. So I'm not as far as that goes. But I don't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
My wife just called me, and she's a week overdue, so I just need to go and check on that.
Okay, yeah, man, you're good.
Seagulls for the win.
He goes, you know what?
Well, let me give you my perspective on health.
He goes, fuck aspartame. I'm leaving.
Yeah, pretty much.
So when I first started getting into health at all, it was because I started to just work out, and so I just followed a program, and I ate like tons of carbs and stuff like that, and it was really well. And part of it's just the time of life and stress and all that stuff. But I was just always hungry, and I couldn't focus. So then I switched over. I find kind of where I've gone is I've gone more carnivore, and I did the carnivore for like a month, and I felt pretty good. But then I have noticed, like, if I eat some carbs, it does feel pretty good too. So it's like one of the things, and I always struggle with, that's kind of why I wanted to have you on to talk about health, is I always struggle with, there's a study for this, there's a study for that, and it's such a soft science where, you can look at it from so many different angles and so many different perspectives, and it's not like there's a double-blind study over someone's lifetime of, this one thing. It's just impossible. And so you get a lot of epidemiology, for example, like you'll look at the eggs thing, is the classic example where they told everyone eggs were bad for you. And so people who were health conscious didn't eat eggs. People who smoked and drank and all that stuff did eat eggs. And so they looked at the data and said, well, okay, these people are dying off earlier.
It's correlation data.
Yeah, exactly. So eggs must be bad for you. And then, so I kind of,
let's not throw smoking and drinking under the bus either, Sam.
But where I'm kind of going with this is like, I kind of just I went the more abstract route where I'm just like, what is normal? What do people naturally probably eat, and try to just go as natural as possible?
you would be surprised. Actually, Alan Flanagan, when he was on my podcast, we kind of talked about this. Our hunter people in the carnivore space, which once again, I did carnivore for about 2 years, right? So, I mean, I am formerly of this space.
I've been carnivore groups. Oh, let me just say this. It's really funny. Pure carnivore groups. And anytime anyone has any health issue or anything like that, the response is always eat meat.
Eat more. It's usually you need more fat. That's normally what the response is.
More fat, more salt. Eat a different meat. It's just like there's. It's almost like a cult, and I kind of get where they're coming from, but it's like that's their only solution. It's funny.
Yeah, I've done keto twice, and both times like it felt great. But then again, when I worked those 9 months at a meat market, I was doing a very physical job. Well, I had a full-time job, but it was cut to 3 days a week, so I started working there for 3 days a week. And like, holy crap, I was in the best shape of my life, and I felt the same.
Yeah, well,
and I wasn't on keto.
Yeah, okay. So I guess we'll start with kind of like the carnivore stuff. When it comes to like, Will is dying over there.
Sorry, Will.
Me and Buddy are having a good time. You fellas go ahead.
Me and Buddy having a good time.
It's all interesting stuff, fellas.
He said me and Buddy are having a good time. I was like thinking Buddy was gonna like lift his head up above Will's lap and be like,
"What?" It's full of protein. What can you say? All right.
Yeah, there you go. So whenever you're talking about the carnivore stuff, a lot of people kind of do the natural or the appeal to nature, which is reasonable, but what they tend to leave out is the gatherer part of this. So actually our hunter-gatherer ancestors actually ate about 60 grams of fiber a day because they were eating lots of berries and stuff like that. So
regular as shit.
Yeah. So they actually ate a lot of fruits and vegetables, despite what people may tell you and what people may think. And so that's like this idea of paleo can sometimes be a little bit half-baked. And I used to be one of these people who believed that it didn't matter when it came to cholesterol, but there have actually been a lot more studies that have came out, and they actually correlated people's LDL cholesterol doing what's called Mendelian randomization trials. So basically like picked out a bunch of people that have certain genes and monitored them over the course of their lives for like their LDL cholesterol, HDL to triglycerides, and they measured all their blood markers over the course of the time. What they found is that all the people uniformly who had a higher LDL cholesterol over the course of their lifetime actually had more heart attacks than the people who had a lower LDL. So once again, I used to be of the mind that your LDL doesn't matter so long as your HDL to triglycerides are good, and not that isn't important, but it's actually your LDL isn't entirely dependent on saturated fat intake either. But like if you have a high LDL, then it's a lifetime exposure thing that actually increases your risk of heart attacks.
Do you think cholesterol, though, they've used the example of it's like, the cops at a bank robbery. So it's like,
I know. Yeah, I don't necessarily think that, because cholesterol in doesn't mean cholesterol out. Cholesterol does tend to be very genetic. So like some people may just have a naturally higher cholesterol, and they may have to, take in a little bit more fiber and watch their saturated fat intake throughout their life to just kind of make sure that it stays a little bit lower. And then for some people, they may be able to eat so when I was on carnivore, my LDL never got above like 160, which you would think it would be sky high for how much saturated fat I was eating, but
that's what
just
everyone
never
told me
did.
when I was on keto. Like your cholesterol is going to go through the roof.
Yeah,
I never got checked. Like, I don't know.
Right. It's very independent, but once again, it's just over the course of your lifetime. If you have a higher LDL, then you're more likely to have a heart disease event. And this isn't like, once again, uniformity. Yeah.
Will just left. My bottle's gone. Peace.
So how about some lifestyle stuff? Like, what do you how do you like stay? Just give us some broader, less detailed, just general lifestyle stuff that you found that really worked for you.
Yeah. So for me, lots of walking, and that sounds pretty boring, but I absolutely love to take my dogs for a walk every single day when it's warmer out, or just a little bit of cardio on the treadmill. Being on your feet most of the day, which my job kind of requires as a mechanic, that I am on my feet most of the day, and just trying to keep hyperpalatable foods out of the house, because, you know, I did have like a bag of M&Ms in the house, and I can't tell you how many times I would go over and just grab a fistful of those motherfuckers and down them.
Right.
And also, don't when you see junk at work, like you see donuts on the counter, just realize you like don't have to eat them. And
so many
it's
fuckers at work do that.
Yeah.
They bring in fucking quick trip donuts.
Yep.
Like you can get a 6-pack one for like $3. I mean, it's yeah.
I love
They
the
bring it every
ingredients on some
day.
of them. Like the first ingredient is liquid sugar. I'm like, oh, nice.
Yeah. Right. So, but like beyond that, one thing that I've kind of really tried to disabuse people from is like putting morality to food, because it's just like a recipe for disaster. And this actually kind of bears out in the literature too, where like people who have hard rules on food actually tend to binge a lot more than people who don't. So, you know, just kind of understand, like, if you have a cheat meal or if you have a meal off the plan, you didn't fuck up. It's just, you know, you have to kind of opt for your highest quality of life at the time. So like the week I was on my honeymoon with my wife, I gained a little bit of weight. Well, we were fucking enjoying ourselves. That just is what it is. So don't like quit putting morality to food, because once again, it's just going to be a recipe for disaster. So I'd really encourage people, you know, try to do a little bit of resistance training, at least, you know, 2 times a week. If you can, ideally is like 4 days a week. That's what I do right now. Walking as much as possible is great because it's very, very low impact and keeps your, you know, your metabolism pretty much going. Try to keep hyperpalatable foods out of the house. And just don't put morality to food. That's just, like I said, just awful idea.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm curious about, you were mentioning carbohydrates when you were talking, or did you say fiber?
So when it came down, our ancestors, they ate about 60 grams of fiber a day on average.
So here's my question is,
giant poops.
I worked with a guy, and he was a good friend of mine.
Period poops.
I still consider him a friend, but anyways, he's very big. He was into the keto thing. He does the carnivore thing. He's also understands like nuance and genetics and things like that too. So I think he made strict rules with himself about food, but would often find himself binging. Ironically that you say that.
Yeah.
Yep. And but my question is I learned a lot about carbohydrates from him, and he tend to be of the belief that minimizing carbohydrates as much as possible seemed to be a good thing for inflammation and things like that. Also blood sugar levels and things like that. So I'm just curious if there's, and not necessarily to that point, but my question is more is like, should there be limits on carbohydrates? Are there healthy carbohydrates versus unhealthy carbohydrates? I'm just curious about that because I have higher blood sugar, and so I don't really watch my diet like I should. But oftentimes I'm just curious about like the carbohydrate conversation in general.
Now, typically with keto people and a lot of people now is that they're very dogmatic in the approach or when they talk about carbohydrates. And as I kind of said earlier, I really don't put morality to food. So there aren't necessarily any bad carbohydrates. There are ones that you perhaps should try to get more of in your diet, and ones that are going to be, you know, not as satiating and give you a lot of calories without giving you kind of any benefit. Now, once again, we all love cheesecake and ice cream and stuff like that. It's enjoyable because those are like foods that, you know, we go out with our wife or something like that and, you know, just enjoy a dessert. You know, those are just hedonic pleasures that you enjoy. And I indulge in those frequently, probably at least once a week. And I just fit them into my, you know, daily expenditure, but that is what it is. So like, when people talk about inflammation, it's such like a vague topic. Like, are you talking about an acute response? Because exercise causes inflammation. So are you saying we should quit exercising? No, no one would ever tell you to quit exercising. But when it comes to inflammation as well, it's like, is this a systemic response? Is your entire body inflamed? And usually that's because of energy toxicity. So you've had too much food for too long to the point where now, you know, you are inflamed, and that's going to manifest in different ways for different people. So the way to reduce that would once again to be reduce overall calories and then eventually lose weight and get to a more healthy place. Now, when you're very, very overweight and you're sedentary, now keto diet may be a little bit more helpful for you because that's going to help get your blood sugar regulated pretty quick. Now, there's actually a lot of evidence coming out saying that you could still kind of reduce your blood sugar with carbohydrates as well. But I think the literature is there a lot more sufficiently for lower carbohydrate diets. But a great way to, you know, once again, reduce your blood sugar would be to get a lot of fiber and then, you know, protein and, you know, healthy fats.
I've noticed, like for me personally, like the two diets that I did best on was probably carnivore and then just whole foods. Like I did the whole food diet for a month.
What does that mean when you say whole food?
Whole food means nothing processed, nothing like, like
Okay, but see, my problem with this when people start framing process is that people they frame processing as inherently bad, but I don't do that. And the specific reason for that is that protein powders are processed food, but that's actually a great way to get a high amount of protein without all the extra calories. Because if you're looking at, like, let's say a brisket or something, you're getting a whole ton of fat and some protein, a decent bit of protein, but not as much you would with like a protein powder or fat-free Greek yogurt, which is delicious and high in protein, but they processed it to make it, have a higher protein with a lower amount of fat and carbohydrates in it. So I don't necessarily think that processing is bad, but if you're processing it in a way that, makes it way more palatable, you're adding all these oils and sugars to it, then yeah, it's bad.
Process is a pretty broad term.
Exactly. So
Right,
even like the ribeye steak you get from the store is processed.
Or sausage is processed.
Very processed.
And all it is ground pork and
technically, I believe whole food would be anything that contains all of the remaining parts of the original food. Yeah. So even if it has been processed and it still has the original food, it's still technically a whole food.
Well, and I think of it, and maybe this is incorrect, but the way I think of it is like if you look at bread and there's 100 different ingredients, well, that's something where they just created something basically. Whereas
I eat white bread every single morning. And listen, I can deadlift over 500 pounds. I could squat over 350. I can bench press well over 200. Like, don't worry about that stuff, dude. You're going to be fine.
How about your like mental ability? What kind of foods help your mental ability the best?
From what I understand, this is a very, very cursory understanding of literature, but like EPA and DHA, so basically like foods from like fatty fish, are actually really good for brain health. And actually, when women are pregnant, it's actually very important that they get a lot of EPA and DHA, because I think a lot of that actually helps with the overall health of the fetus's like eyes and brain, if I remember correctly. So EPA and DHA are really good. That's about all that comes to my mind right now. I think MCT oil is supposed to help with like mental and cognitive performance. Same deal with ketones, which once again you can get from fasting or being on a low carb diet or just taking exogenous ketones. Caffeine also helps with like mental performance. So those are a few of the things that kind of come to mind when I think about mental performance and nutrition overall.
Derek said he had to pee, so.
He wasn't saying fuck you on mic drop.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so another question. So what's a typical day in your life? That's more like what's an ideal day in your life? Let's put it that way.
Well, ideal versus what I do every day. So I'll give you both, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure.
So like my typical day is I'm up at 4:30, no matter what, even on weekends. And then I make my first meal of the day. And then, get ready to go to work. I usually do about like anywhere from about 30 minutes to 45 minutes of cardio in the morning, like just walking on the treadmill on an incline. Go to work. I have my first meal at 5, my second meal at 8 o'clock, which is usually like a protein bar of some sort. And then for lunch, I normally have like some ground beef with a big salad, some fat-free dressing, peppers, and maybe like some chocolate or like a higher protein candy bar or something like that. 3 o'clock I have my that'd be my fourth meal, which is normally like a protein bar. And then for dinner I normally make some kind of like protein dessert, so I use like protein powder to make like a brownie or maybe like a cheesecake bowl with some Greek yogurt or something like that. Or if I'm low on calories for the day, then I'll just do like a protein shake. Now my ideal day would be getting up at 5:30 or 4:30, go working out first thing in the morning after a heavy carbohydrate meal, and then have like a fattier meal at 8 o'clock, and then doing like podcasting and music stuff throughout the day, and then kind of eating all the same times throughout the day. Those would be like my ideals.
Yeah, not bad. So I do kind of like how you went through the hardcore like dieting and all that stuff, and you kind of, it's not very often that I see or talk to someone with that experience that went hardcore this direction and then got a little more lax or not or just changed it in a little bit more I don't know the term, but
I do flexible dieting now, essentially, which is where you pretty much have everything as long as they would say if it fits your macros, which is once again what works for me personally. And this is what I try to put on to people whenever they ask me about diet and nutrition is that like, okay, well, what works for you? Because flexible dieting works great for me, but for some people, if they can't just have one cookie and put it down, right? Some people are
cookie season right now.
So. Right. Yeah. So some people are just going to want to eat the whole freaking thing. And for me, when it came to nutrition, when I was on carnivore, I just couldn't get enough calories in. So what would happen to me by the end of the day is that I would want to binge on the weekends because your body's going to find a way to, get you back to homeostasis no matter what. There's the body set point theory or body fat set point theory, which basically suggests that your body's kind of like a thermostat. It's going to have a body fat area where it wants you to be, where it doesn't want you to go higher than that, and it doesn't want you to go lower. So, if you start to eat too much, then it's going to fight to, reduce your hunger and get you back down to a certain body weight. And then if you eat too little, it's going to fight to get you back up there.
I also like the part you said about like a lot of walking. I do door-to-door sales. And so this winter, I know I've said that a bunch of times, but like this winter,
wait, do you guys do sales?
Yeah, we all do sales, except for not Brett, but yeah. But so I used to do door to door, like just in town, like knock a door, go to the next door, knock a door, and 1 in 5 houses maybe signed up. So I did a lot of walking, especially if it was not good sales. But this winter I've been doing a lot of farms, so I like go sit in my car, drive 2 hours, drive to farms for 4 hours, and then drive home. And it's just like for the first, I'm not at all fat, but for the first time I have a bit of a gut, and I'm a lot more depressed and lethargic, and I'm almost to the place where I'm like, I'm just gonna go back to knocking it down, even if it's a pay cut, because that walking, that activity. And the other thing too is like I'd go walk doing sales, and then I get home and I go walk with my kids because it just feels good,
Yeah, for me, I always look at exercise, and then all the activity I do is just kind of like who I am at this point. So like, and that's not to have any to like say I have a specific relationship with this. Like, I go work out because I know this is going to allow me to be in the best position to take care of the people that I care about the most, and obviously keep me, well and healthy for as long as possible. So like, obviously I love my wife and I love our dogs. And I love everything about my life right now, but I cannot sustain that lifestyle without doing everything that I do, the cardio, the working out, and obviously my job. Oh man, he's fucking firing that thing up. Look at
that. Hey, I paid good money for this.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know.
I do notice just like staying active, just moving around. My job, I accuracy test rifle ammunition at an ammo factory.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I get a lot of free time, and I shoot into a 200-yard alley in the basement. And so then when I'm, I don't have anything to do, sometimes I'll just walk up and down the alley and listen to an audiobook on my earmuffs. And yeah, that's just an easy way to just, get in some exercise. I work 12-hour shifts, so it's not like I have a lot of free time when I'm off work to get some exercise in. But I need to start doing that again. I did quit that for about a month or so, and I'm starting to feel more lethargic again.
Yeah, you overall do feel better when you're kind of moving around a lot more. At least I know that's certainly the case for me. I was just listening to a video by Lane Norton, who's kind of one of the people I go to the most when it comes to like anything nutrition or building muscle. And if I remember correctly, he cited a study where they said that the people who actually worked out had a lot less back injuries than people who are sedentary, which is pretty interesting because you would think that people lifting heavy weight would get injured a lot more, but that's not true at all, actually.
Isn't it because you build the muscles around your back and that helps protect your spine?
Yeah, and your core.
So like when I was a car mechanic for a while, like I put...
Sorry to hear.
Yeah, I know. It was I was the worst car mechanic ever, and I'm so glad to be out of it. But I just remember, like, I would make sure I worked out because I wanted to protect myself. I saw too many people with just back injuries and just all bent out of shape, and it's like I'm gonna be in the best shape because I'm like it's a tough job. We're kind of running out of time. What should we go around and do plugs?
Sure. Yeah.
Where should people follow you at, Daniel?
You can find me on Twitter at Ryan_Hanson, Hanson.
And Derek, how do people join the Libertarian Party of Minnesota?
Go to takehumanaction.com, fill out your information. If you're from Minnesota, it'll pop onto a spreadsheet, or I guess we have a CRM now, and I'll be sending you emails and texts.
Awesome.
Yeah. I guess you can
Brett.
just find me on Twitter at LindenFelzer191. Good luck spelling that.
And then Kyle, what are your big projects? Where should we follow you? I know you got that awesome podcast in Liberty and Health.
Yeah, you can find me at Kyle Matovcik on Twitter, KyleMatovcik. My band is called A Common Crown. We're on all major streaming platforms, and we'll be opening up for Lita Ford. So if you're in southwestern Pennsylvania, May 7th, we will be up at Jurgles opening for Lita Ford. The podcast, like you said, is called In Liberty and Health. Same deal, all major audio podcatchers. Also on Facebook, so you can find me there. But I am most active on Twitter. And I appreciate you guys having me on. And I'd love to have you guys on the show, and we'll hopefully do it again sometime.
Sounds good. When are you coming to Minnesota with your band?
Oh man, just set it up. I would love to, but it sounds cold over there, so I don't know.
I do want
better.
I haven't looked into this, but I do want to do. Robbie Fire does that, like the porch tour. It'd be fun to have like Robbie the Fire out, Adam Nutter, and then get a band out here. That'd be sick. So
yeah, man.
I don't know if I have that much ambition, but if I do, I'll hit you up for sure.
Yeah, well, we have big events here all the time. So if you're ever in southwestern Pennsylvania, if you're in Pittsburgh or anything like that for any reason, then we play a lot of weekends, and we do host some pretty big badass concerts too. So
cool. All right. Well, catch you all on the other side, and see you all next week. I believe next week we have Jose Galison. He's going to be talking about OKC right after he does it, the exact same episode on Part of the Problem. So we'll probably figure a different angle on it, but I'm sure it's one of those subjects that there's no end to all the different conspiracies and things that tie into it. And it's important.
It got talked about on the news too. So like, people are starting to look into it.
Well, it's an interesting case that once you kind of understand go through and understand all of that, you're going to have a broader view of how just the world works, and this deep state and all that stuff.
It ties into Waco and Ruby Ridge and
exactly. Well, stay black flagged, and see you guys later.
Black flags matter.